everyone, and welcome to All Things Grace Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Majors. The title of our show today is The Power of Being Real. Kelly Whitaker is going to talk to us today about radical authenticity. So, Kelly, I was, looking at, when I was researching you for the show, you're a communication specialist and advocate for radical authenticity. And we're going to talk about this idea of radical authenticity. And you're going to share all of the stuff about your business and what you are creating in the world. But I wanted to start out with I actually transcribed your one of the things that you put on your homepage. And so I transcribed it, and here's what it says. This is the video on your page. If you can rally the nerve to say what you mean with the intention of being understood, life just becomes a lot less complicated. Clear, compassionate, confident communication will open the door to the things you desire and release you from the shit that's weighing you down. I said, yes, please. You please. That I just loved it. I loved it because it was real and it spoke to the heart of what I'm about. I have changed my title. I'm no longer a DEI consultant, but I went from a difficult conversation strategist, and now I'm a transformational conversation strategist, because this is about transforming conversation. And the way you do that is through radical authenticity. So I am going to just say thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. And can you first tell me a little bit about your business, where you are, why radical authenticity, what it means to you, and let's just get started with your big why.
Absolutely. So my business is called Kelly Convos. Like you mentioned, I am a communication specialist, and I am based in Los Angeles. And I mean, you got the transcript from my video, so you gave a really good sort of snapshot of what it is I do. But I am here to help people release themselves from the difficult conversations that they would otherwise be avoiding. And so I started my business 3 years ago, and with the specific intention of there isn't a space for this. There is not an accessible space for this. Mm-hmm. Communication is a vital skill that is needed and expected in every aspect of our lives, and it isn't one that's accessibly taught. Yeah. And there's also so much vulnerability that comes through communicating or struggling to communicate. And so I recognized that it was my calling to create and hold that space for people to learn this skill for themselves in service of in service of their highest selves, in service of releasing these things that weigh them down. Life on the other side of the conversation is a wonderful and freeing thing. More people deserve access to that. And I want to make sure that they have it.
That is amazing. That is so great. And I cannot tell you how much sleep I've lost worrying about a conversation that I needed to have, that I was just afraid to have.
I know. You get stuck in that loop and you keep thinking about, and then sometimes you get in that space where you start to gaslight yourself and you're like, maybe it isn't as bad as I thought it was. Maybe we can just live this way. And like, we don't have to live that way. Because not only is it in service of ourselves to pursue these conversations, it's also in the best interest of the other people on the other side.
That's right.
The people on the other side deserve to know our truth, deserve to know what's going on so that both parties can move forward. If tension is impacting you, it's impacting them too, whether or not they outwardly acknowledge it. So it's in everyone's best interest.
So I have a client right now that I'm putting together a presentation that I have to do tomorrow, in fact. And there's a group of people in their organization that are the change makers, and they're really advancing the conversations of equity and fairness and inclusion and all the things. And tomorrow's whole conversation is about, one, being able to understand what my big why is. But even more so, the second part is about confidence. About how do we find that confidence? And I'm struggling with how do you find the confidence, because when you're speaking from your heart and you're just being real, it doesn't take as much. It's like take it or leave it. It's just who I am. It's what I believe. It's what I stand for. It's why I'm here. When it's that much in your bones, confidence is it's just, you know, you don't, also you don't need it, but it's like you just
Mhm.
have any confidence to talk to you, Kelly, or to tell you, right? Because it's what I believe, and I'm just sharing what I believe. And so
Mhm.
how do you work with people and help them move from this is about my confidence to speak in front of these people, move from that to this is just my truth and I'm sharing it, take it or leave it, right? How
Mhm.
do you move people from one to the other?
Two things come up for me when you're talking about this, and I love this topic. God, I could dig into and talk about this for hours.
Mhm.
So two things come up. One being the universal truth and choosing to believe that I am not for everybody and not everybody is for me.
Mm, mm,
And that tends to release ego and release expectations because suddenly the stakes feel different. The stakes feel different because I'm sharing my truth. And if you reject that, that is a reflection of you. That is not a reflection of me. And
mhm,
I seek community that is compatible, that sees me. And I want to be around people that I can see that it's got that mutual energetic flow. And
mhm,
so having the courage to release the judgment from people on the other side, having the courage to release how it's going to be received, and trusting that as you share your truth, it's going to land as it's going to land. And then again, all parties can move forward.
so the real conversation is not courage to have the conversation, it's courage to release your expectations and release what you need, like we feed off of the likes and the follows now.
Oh,
So
completely.
and so this is a conversation about what if you don't get any likes or follows? What if you're just the lone person saying, I'm sorry, I believe what I believe?
Hmm.
Loneliness, I think, is another part. Like people are afraid of that rejection and that sense
Hmm.
of what if nobody sees me or hear, you know, and I'm like,
Hmm.
there are so many people when you speak your truth, there's a whole tribe waiting for you. Like, come on, we that's
Hmm.
our truth too. Right.
Hmm.
And I think we just can't get there. I think we're too afraid. We have been conditioned to be too afraid. And social media just has us, whew,
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Can really restrict, can really, to put a framework around what is successful, what is accepted, what is going to land, what is not. And that does feel connected to the authenticity piece of it all.
Mhm.
Choosing to be motivated by your truth, your authenticity, even, and honestly, especially when it's coming from a place that's a little on the weirder side. Because
Mhm.
we're all seeking people who see our weirdness, who see our own eccentricities,
Mhm.
who
Mhm.
feel at home there.
Mm,
Your authenticity will be a home for someone else's authenticity.
that's
And
right.
I don't want to pretend that that's an easy journey to be on. I won't remotely imply that it's, you can't just say, "Oh, well, it's they'll get me or they won't," and I don't care. Like you said, loneliness is huge. Loneliness is really pervasive and can really bring you down. And so allowing yourself to find that balance and be patient with yourself while trusting your authenticity, your voice, your needs, and your experience, and trusting that the more you have the courage to put that out in the world, the higher your energetic frequency is going to be, and the higher the odds that it will resonate with the right people.
Mhm.
Optimistic, stubborn trust.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, when I first, I want to resonate with you, what you were saying about, your people are out there. And even when you don't know each other. So I've never ever done this before, but as soon as both of our screens came on and for this, I started dancing. And what did you do? You're like, hey, I'm dancing too. Like you started
I was
dancing,
grooving.
right? Because there's a resonance. And I think that when we're trying to be ourselves and show up and be vulnerable and speak our truth into a listening where there's no resonance, that is part of why we suffer too, right? I know when I walk into some spaces, I know I can feel it. First of all, I
Mhm.
can feel the resistance. I can feel. So I go to a certain place where I'm like, okay, this is my strategy or my, right? But
Mhm.
when there are people who are resident, there is no strategy. There's just connection. And
Presence.
that's how exactly. And that's how I tend to traffic. Like where I have friends and long-term friends, and we just kind of drifted apart, and now when we get back together, I can feel the lack of resonance. I don't want to work that hard, Kelly. I do not. Right? I want to roll people, and I was watching something last night, and this woman had on like these roller skates with like fluorescent lighting wheels. And I'm like, I need those skates. I can't skate. I need, right? So that piece of like how we grow and build and connect and become better versions of ourselves because of that resonance and because of the presence of someone else who's like, oh, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
so we force ourselves to try to fit in these boxes with people who we get them to like us or get them to accept us, and that's just work, and it's exhausting. So here's my question. Please share, like, what is your personal journey? What's your radical authenticity journey that brought you to this being like, yep, this is my jam?
Oh man, what a good question. I will say that I have the gift and privilege of two parents who have loved and seen me unconditionally from the jump. Like
Mm,
I
mm,
know how lucky I am, and I want to shout out my folks as often as I can, because I am just like awash in gratitude for them and everything they've done for me. And truly, like I said, seeing me from the jump. The legend in my family is that my folks, so I have a bigger brother, and it's just the two of us. And the lore is that my folks wanted to have three kids, but once I was born, they said, "Oh no, no, Kelly, not a middle child."
Oh,
And so I got to be the youngest. And also, I mean, that's just an indicator of like my light and my energy and my, I mean, among my my first sentences were "Don't, Jake," and "Don't mess with me, Miss Sue." Miss Sue's my grandma. I just came in with an opinion, and I was here to share it. And like I said, I mean, the phenomenal privilege of unconditional love from my parents, that they were willing to nurture that. And
yeah.
so they nurtured me in finding my voice and, you know, allowing me to pursue the things that just lit me up. I've been a theater lover my entire life. And so the amount of access that my folks gave me to theater, both getting to go to the theater as well as getting to perform and be a performer. I mean, they allowed me to do those things. And so my authenticity came to me easily and naturally, if I'm being honest, because I had the space and support to do so. And
Mm.
by extension, I don't know how to be anybody else. I mean, I have these very intense eyebrows. I'm sure you can see my eyebrows expose what I'm thinking all the
All the
time. And
time.
so my face will just betray me. And so people will, if I'm not having it, people know.
Yeah.
And so I just, because I physically show what it is that's going on in here, it is easier for me to be like, yeah, that sucked what you just said, or, you know, to whatever degree that I need to move forward with it.
Mhm.
And so that authenticity has been a big motivator in my life. And that combined with my innate altruism. I know that I am on this earth to make a positive impact and make things easier for as many people as possible. And I
Mhm.
also recognize that, you know, I have had the gift of feeling very comfortable in my skin, in the world, and in the spaces that I have been in. And I want to make sure that I allow other people to feel that way. And I nurture the fire and the energy and the flame that is in the people who are around me, so they feel comfortable doing the same.
So let's talk about some challenges and rewards. Okay. So, what are the biggest challenges that individuals face? And I, well, first, before I go there, I want to acknowledge to people listen to this. Wow, what a huge, huge blessing it is to have that family that's like, go do you, boo, be free and do it. And we're gonna be on the
Mhm,
front
mhm.
cheer you on, and you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And so there's a lot of folks like me who I don't, that was not my experience. I had to find my way to my truth and to my purpose. Then I had to fight and slay all the dragons to be able to say, now I can speak my truth, right? And now, and partly because of age, where I'm just like, I'm just too tired to do the fight. Like
Mhm.
I've done enough. I'm good. But there are people who are just starting to find their voice and to actually like peep, who me?
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
just so about those individuals. what would you say is the starting point? I just switched questions because I was talking about rewards and I'll come back to that. But what is the starting point of that person who's like, it must be nice, but I don't know the first thing about being liberated in my person?
Mm-hmm. I mean, to start, when in doubt, gift yourself with a deep breath. That is something that
a deep prayer,
deep breath.
Breath. Okay.
Yeah, when those fears, when you feel like, oh, I want to speak up, I want to say this thing about, but I don't know, and I'm worried about how it's going to be received. Take a deep breath. That's more on the tangible advice side, and also, it is never a bad decision to gift yourself a deep breath when the fear of judgment is impeding your truth, is impeding the light that's inside you from showing out. And similar to what we've been talking about, have the courage to not give a shit how it's perceived.
That's right.
I mean, and that a big part of that does come down to worthiness, trusting in the worthiness of your voice, your lived experience, and that, again, it will be received by the right people. And if it doesn't land, if it doesn't receive, that's an indicator of them. That's an indicator of lack of compatibility. Worthiness, trusting your own voice, and having the courage to let it fly, especially because you don't know how it's going to be received. There have been times where I've been in a group where I'm like, I don't know these people. This might land a little weird, but I'm going to go for it. And it has wound up opening the door for people to meet that authenticity within me and for really legitimate connections to form.
Wow. I have so many things to say about that. And I know it's on point because it's 2:22. And my every time I catch a number like that on my clock, I'm like, what was being said? Because this is resonant, right? That is so resonant. This whole piece around, you don't know. See, part of it is we think we know. So that's the first part of the suppression, that we're like, because they're going to be, you don't even know. Some people may be so grateful that somebody said it and somebody showed up as themselves. You may open the box to everyone unleashing their own voice, right?
Yeah. So often people need permission, and modeling that permission can lead to freedom.
Absolutely. So what are the biggest challenges so you named a few, but I want to now kind of move to the workplace space. And part of what you do, you work with organizations. So what are some of the challenges that that people are facing, and can you share, like, what's the reward? What is on the other side of just speaking it and saying it and living it?
I mean, the challenges, if we're being honest, are also wrapped up in capitalism. Capitalism makes it so the workplace isn't always a safe space to be authentic in the way that is true, and to speak up in the way that is serving of you. Because so often, I mean, people are looking out for who's at the top. And for the people who are, on the way up, it is hard. They have less agency, they have less options and power and flexibility. And so the challenge that presents itself is, okay, it comes down to messaging. It's how can we take what your need is. I'm talking more so about, like, if you need to speak up in the work environment, more so, whether that is speaking up for your needs. I'm so sorry, my computer just punked out and did something stupid. I didn't go away, did I?
No.
Wonderful. What I'm thinking more so about speaking up for your needs, or speaking up to resolve some conflict that's presenting itself in the work environment. It can be really difficult to access the language that you need in the structure of that team. And so thinking about phrasing, thinking about, this is the messaging, this is what I need. How can I say it in a way that isn't going to make, my boss is defensive, isn't going to make me seem like a problem or a squeaky wheel, while still sets us up for a solution? Because keeping your team happy is the best way to keep your team functioning. That is the best way to keep your team performing at a high level. And it's the best way to keep good talent on your team. So it's a combination of both, the people on the team being willing to advocate for themselves, applying that perspective of what is the environment like, how will I best be heard, and working with the people who are at the top, working with the leaders, making sure that they are willing to be receptive, making sure that they are asking for feedback and not only following through with it, but listening to the feedback. It's all good and well to say, oh yeah, submit your complaint, do speak up whenever. And also there's a power structure in place, and it isn't always easy for people to speak up within the confines of that power structure. And so I am targeting working with leaders because I know that it has to start at the top. They have to be willing to receive it and willing to believe it and willing to do something about it. I went a little all over the place in terms of speaking up in the work environment. I hope that answered your question.
It absolutely did. And I saw a follow-up question to that is let's talk about I'll just say Black women in the workplace that would say, I'm not going to bring my full self. I know what happens when I'm my full self. I know, right? And so I remember somebody reaching out to me saying, Michelle, it's very reckless of you to tell people to bring their full self. It's reckless and it's dangerous because some people who bring their full self, that can create, you're heard as aggressive and not passionate, or you're heard, right? And, there's merit to that. I hear it. And what I hear you saying is that is why I work with leaders, because the culture has to be conducive for people to bring their full self, right? Sometimes it's not. What are your thoughts about the message of bringing your full self and how that relates to folks of color or folks from marginalized communities who are like really having to be managed and tone, what is it called when you
self-regulating?
Yeah. So when you fake it, showing up to work fake, I can't even think of the word right now.
Oh, sure. Being performative in a way. Sometimes.
But yes, yeah. Performative is one that fits really well. That's not the exact word, but yes, where you just have to go and get through it. Right. So what are your thoughts about that perspective?
It's such a delicate thing. And I will not pretend that it isn't. I'm also not in the business of saying, show up, be authentic, do your thing. Who cares who's going to respond? Because there are real repercussions for action and behavior, especially coming from marginalized groups. And there have been, experiences that I've had as a queer person in the working environment and as a woman in the working environment where I have felt really stifled and felt really unsafe to respond to things that presented themselves because it's very, very delicate. And so I think unfortunately, you have to be very discerning about who you can trust. And if you are able within those spaces to have an advocate, to have a champion, to have somebody in the space, ideally in a leadership position, who can have your back, then the best thing you can do is show up as authentically as you see fit, given the circumstances. You got to apply perspective. You have to, supply
discernment.
You have to think exactly. And also see who can have your back and allow yourself to trust in those people if they're there, if they are there in the space.
Yeah.
Not allowing yourself to be isolated, I guess. Which I recognize can feel very difficult to do so when you are the only one in the space, if you are feeling tokenized in some way.
Yeah. So now I want to play angel's advocate.
Ooh, okay.
Listen, I have my candidate that I want, and he's not popular. And if you're saying be myself, I should be able to be in the workplace and be myself. There's some people I'm like, don't be yourself. Like, this organization cannot take you being yourself, right? And there's a balance, and I don't know what that balance is, and so I'm just like really kind of rolling with it in real time here because we want people to be radically authentic, right? That's important. But sometimes your authenticity and your values can be harmful. And the way you think about things can be harmful to your work community or your community at large. And, is the name of the game. Look, if everybody's speaking their truth, just like you can take mine or leave mine, we can take theirs or leave theirs. But sometimes if they're in a position of power,
Mhm.
we can't really, it affects my performance evaluation or meet, right? So do you
Mhm.
have any thoughts? And I know this, I don't know if this is a big question or not, but do you have any thoughts about we want everybody to be radically authentic, except you, except you, Bob. You no, right?
Well,
How does that work?
I think it is also with it regards what the work environment is like and what the priorities are within the work environment. Because the thing is, in the modern day, there's this whole thing where your work is your family. We're your family. It's not. Your work is not your family. Your work is your job. And
Mhm,
so there is different levels of authenticity that you can access and deliver in those different environments.
mhm,
So I'm going to be authentic in a different way that I am with you than when I am with my friends, than I would be with my professional team, because it's a job. And
mhm,
so it's a bit of a delicate thing, and I
mhm,
recognize there's a lot of nuance when it comes down to it. And also the job environment is different than your personal environment. And so it's about assessing, how do I want to show up? What are my priorities in this space? To what degree am I going to fight for change within this environment as much as one can, versus to what degree am I going to clock out and get out of here?
mhm, mhm. So I'm thinking about the times that I've wanted to say something so bad, and I have to do the Black women decision tree. If I say that, I'm the angry Black woman. If I don't, then I'm the whatever. And then if I like I have share a story of how a neighbor came up to me and was like really so like appreciative and thankful and just really almost in this humble way, like, oh my God, I can't believe I've had this fear of living among Black people my whole life. And here you come. You're a great neighbor and you're blah, blah. Decision tree. Do I cuss them out? No, because then that's going to change the dynamics of my neighborhood. Do I say, hey, sir, what you're doing is called exceptionalizing. And you're basically telling me, hey, I'm a racist, except for you, because you're one of the good ones. Blah, blah, blah. Or do I just say what I did, which was like, okay, I was just too tired, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's part of being that radical authenticity where some things we don't need to fight everything as a matter of preservation. And it's exhausting to be
Mhm.
for radical authenticity. It's exhausting sometimes. So what do you say
Mhm.
to people who are just tired and like, I don't want to be authentic. I just feel like as a matter of my own sanctity and safety, I just would rather put on the mask and just smile and right. What is the
Yeah.
cost? What is the costs to that? Can you talk a little bit about there's benefits, but there's also costs. So what are some of the costs to that?
The cost to when you feel like you are unable to be yourself and have access to your self in spaces is of course high. Of course it is, because I mean, it's not easy to be condescended to. It's not easy to have to navigate sexist and racist language and have to be responsible for being the one to hold it down. And that adds to anxiety, that adds to stress, that adds to a lot of negative things, to have to sort of manicure how you move through the world.
Mhm,
And it comes down to assessing the situation, assessing the environment, just like your example, going through, is this a situation where I need to put it down and tell this guy what's up? Or is this a situation where I can just allow it to be, move it to the side?
mhm,
Different situations present different opportunities for authenticity to varying degrees. There's gradiency of authenticity, and that is choosing when to engage and how to engage, because we can't fix everything through individual reactions. We just can't. And so using being discerning with who and where and to what degree of gradiency,
mhm,
and ultimately choosing to trust and honor yourself. And you honored yourself in the situation in the example that you provided. You honored yourself because you're like, you know what, big picture, it is not in my best interest. I'm not going to fix this man. It's not my responsibility to fix this man. And so you honored yourself but also you didn't say, oh, wow, thank you. Oh, wow. No, we didn't do that. It was an okay.
Yeah.
And that's, you honored yourself in that moment, given the circumstances that it was, because there's just nuance in life. I was in a similar, not a similar experience. I was in an experience over this weekend, at the wedding weekend, as it were, where I was the maid of honor, and I had been busting my butt and doing all the stuff. And so on the final day, I'm exhausted. We're at the after brunch, and the bride's father snaps me over. He's sitting down, I'm standing, he snaps me over. And I had a moment where I was like, you're going to snap at me? That's how you're going to behave? And at the same time, he was happy. It was the final of the wedding weekend, and so I went over to him and I said, hi, Paul, that's the last time you're going to snap at me. And then we moved forward. Yeah. And I felt really good. That was an authentic experience. It also would have been authentic to go, you're not out here snapping, are you? That's a respectful way to talk to anyone, let alone your daughter's best friend, do you? And that's not what the situation called for. And I still made it clear.
Yeah.
And I hope he never snaps at me nor anyone else.
Yeah.
So I wish there was a cut and dry answer. And also, life is full of nuance.
That's right.
I don't even want to say it's a question of choosing your battles. It's choosing what honors you and yourself in the immediate now and big picture.
Yeah. So I think that takes us back to, discernment. So if the objective is for us to be able to have discernment, I think at the heart of discernment is a connection with your divine self that is like just clear and complete, right? And I'll use your words, clear, compassionate, and confident, right? And that will inform how you communicate. But if we have to have that, I know who I am. I took a negotiation class, and she was saying, like, if you don't know what your value is and what your values are, you've already lost a negotiation, right? Why? And I think that's kind of resonant with what we're talking about here. Like, it's hard to know when to say, I'm okay with the bigger picture. I'm okay with letting Paul have his moment because I'm making that choice. Mm-hmm. But when you're making it because you don't know what to say, or you're so angry you can't control your emotions, or because you're like, oh no, the F he didn't. But like, that is when you are detached from your power self, from your force self, right? And so I think so can you talk a little bit about how you access that discernment and what you already said, breath, right? A deep breath. Did you take a deep breath before you went over and talked to Paul?
I surely did. And had I not, there is a real chance I would have popped off in a way that I would have regretted.
Right. And so what other practices, how else do you stay connected to that place? Because you have to be tethered tight to that thing, because there's enough out here saying that will have you going off all the time, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you keep that tether to your person really tight?
Similar to what I have said prior to this, making the choice over and over again to honor yourself and honor your highest self. And that comes from doing the work of growth and healing and self-discovery. Mm-hmm. And as you do that work and as you commit to that work, you start to invest in a higher level of self-worth, and therefore be less inclined to let people speak to you in a way that you don't like to be spoken to, less inclined to let people snap at you and let them get away with it. And also recognizing what honors you in this situation. Is what honors me to get out of there? Is what honors me to treat this as a learning opportunity? Understanding what your values are. And my values are kindness. My values are openness, and my values are also respect. And so if I am feeling disrespected in a way, and I can be discerning and choose to what degree am I looking to respond to that? Will this person even hear me? And, with my example, I knew that guy, he wasn't going to hear me. He wasn't going to be like, hey, wow, that's a good point. I should stop snapping at people. That
Yeah.
wasn't the time and place. And also, I chose to make it clear, not here, not me.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
And so recognizing what your values are, how you move through the world, how you want to be treated, how you deserve to be treated, and how you will be treated, and letting that inform how you show up, how you engage, and who you engage with.
Yeah. I really hope that people that are listening to this, especially people who really struggle with their value, and when you are, well, I'll just ask you this question. Narcissists, okay? So many people are with narcissists and they do not know. I've been with one. Thank goodness I'm not with one now, but I've been with one. And that piece of radical authenticity gets so lost because the very nature of what they're out to do is to get you to lose perspective. And once you lose your perspective, you've lost everything. You are unable to advocate for yourself because your perspective is now what they want you to do. It's all about what they want, what they need, and trying to keep them like, okay, are you okay? And I didn't, it's such a cloud. They create a world where you can't even see anymore, right? So we have this idea called radical authenticity, and I think being in a situation where you can't even see, and we're talking about radical authenticity, these are extremes. I get it. Thoughts about how to come from that far away to like, at least I see what it took me. Like I had to get a therapist. Like I was just like, and I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that I felt confused. I felt like I had no power. I felt like I was just chasing my tail and trying to get them to understand. That's the thing. You feel like you're misunderstood and you're trying to get, and then I had somebody say, oh yeah, you're with a narcissist. I'm like, well, what is that? I looked it up. Check. Oh, check everything. And so I want to appeal to people who are in situations where if you're feeling confused constantly, if you ask a very direct and simple question, but the question is you get back is like, that doesn't make sense, but you don't say anything, those are the people that I want for you to give some maybe hope or some ideas or tips or thoughts to, of how they can get grounded in their power and their own voice and their own agency.
And it comes down to that trust and that worthiness and self-honoring in the way that we've been talking about this whole time. And I love that your podcast is on all things grace, because I think in this example, it's so easy to give grace to the person on the other side and so hard to give grace to ourselves.
That's right.
And so allowing yourself to apply that filter.
You're gonna make me I got to put my grace glasses on. I had to switch glasses on that note.
Let's go. Grace glasses. Those are cute. I like those. Yes, a system to check in with yourself. Am I showing myself and my needs the grace that I'm giving this other person? Allowing yourself to be as much of a priority as you are allowing the other person to be. I have worked with a lot of clients who have that just strong loyalty. They are so loyal to a person who is not being good to them. Similarly, work environments. People are so loyal to jobs that treat them like shit. But because they're like, well, I'm a loyal person, and they're grounded down into that loyalty, and they're not being loyal to themselves. And so that is a framework that I think can be really valuable and can be really helpful. Am I showing the same grace and loyalty to my precious sacred self as I am to this person? And that can help start to notice the divide between the two, and and allow yourself to heal.
Yeah. And again, I'll go back, I'll say it again, like just the things that when you are, in your bones, that you're showing up in every possible way, and you've tried this way, and you've tried that way, and you're losing sleep, and it just get harder, and you can't see, they don't see you at all unless you're doing exactly what they want. It's those are just some things to look out for, right? And so I just wanted to share that. As we wrap up, I want to ask you, I ask everyone this question on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 is, ugh, this is not the life that I wanted. I need a do-over. I'm out. I don't like it here. 10 is, I cannot imagine a more amazing life. I am free. I'm more than free. I'm liberated from anything society tells me to be. I move around. I'm I am, this is my life. What would you give yourself? And if it's not a 10, do you know what it would take to make a 10?
I love this question so much. I love this question so much. And I think I would put myself at a solid, shining 8.
Okay.
I
Okay.
have my dream, my whole life, what I wanted was for my life to be a sexy rock and roll adventure where I make a positive impact everywhere I go. And I am as close to that as I've ever been. And I am just overjoyed with the life I get to live and the people that I meet and the people that I surround myself with. My heart is very full just coming off of this wedding weekend. I just had the best connections and the best conversations with people. And the work I'm doing, I feel more aligned with than anything I have done prior to that. And my life is full of art and theater and people who get and see me. And I am the gratitude I have for the life that I have been gifted and have fought for is profound. I can easily let myself feel a little bit more passive and say, all these things I've been gifted, how wonderful. And I don't want to negate my agency because I have fought, I have healed, I have been very, very courageous in order to create this life that I have desired. And what's keeping me from a 10, I wish that this weren't the answer, and it so is money. It's the money piece. And it's less a question of like, why don't I have more money? It's the stability that money provides. And as an entrepreneur, particularly, within the first couple years, I am building blocks and my blocks are strong. And also it's hard to get that money in ways that can support the life that I am here to live. So the money piece, and it's a work in progress. And then the other piece is finding stability with my mental health.
Okay.
I struggle with depression pretty profoundly. And I am actually I'm about a month on the other side of a really hateful depression that took me down earlier in this year. And I am giving myself as much grace as I can and working and being honest with myself and the people around me about it. I am seeking help. I am seeking healing. And I know that I am doing the right things and am looking forward to finding that stability, whatever it looks like.
Yeah. It's real. And, it's subjective. I don't know what the level severity or what, but present company included, it's hard. And when it just snatches you out of life, you're like, what the, like I've had
And in the weirdest way, I feel like I don't have time to feel like this.
I don't have time for, I haven't, this breakdown is not scheduled in my calendar.
Period.
Yes. Yeah. I've had that. I'm very, very grateful that it's been a while, but when I feel it like creeping, I'm able to catch it early enough. But even sometimes catching it, I'm like, oh, here we go. Oh, we're here. Okay. But I feel like I've done, like you said, a lot of work. And so I've started to find, mechanisms for myself to, when I feel it creeping, I give myself permission to shut everything down. I do not keep pushing forward if I can. And I'm thankful to have colleagues around me where I'm like, can you take this? Can you do this? Can you write that? And it's not always possible. It's not,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes you just gotta like, look, I'll just miss that money because I can't today, right?
Mhm.
But it's not where it would take me out. And I'm already an introvert. So when you're an introvert, you're just, and people don't think introverts are introvert because you public or you act or because you're out in the world and hi, hello, friend. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so people don't think, and they
Mhm.
think that you're like this all the time.
Mhm.
And then you become their person for their shit. And then you become, right? It's like so all the things that add to the
Mhm.
so I just want to say I see you and I know that world as a, that introvert that, and when you are an introvert, you know there's no one to pull you out because you isolate. I just
Mhm.
right. So just a shout out to our fellow introverts out there and folks who are struggling with any kind of mental well-being issues at all because they're real. It's okay to do whatever kind of medication you need, whatever kind of therapy
Mhm.
you need, whatever kind of church, religious, meditation, prayer, deep breaths, whatever you got to take to walk the planet. Like I'm bad. That's right. I know. I'm here.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I'm gonna leave. I'm here to make a difference. And I just really feel like I just want to be on target with purpose, with loud dogs, but with what I'm here to do, with what my divine purpose and this divine assignment. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a whole thing. Can you get the dog?
They agree. They agree with us.
That's them going amen in the background.
That's right. Hallelujah.
So thank you so much for sharing space. I would love to have you back. I would love to be on your podcast if you have one, or when you have one, or whatever it is. I would love to connect with you. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram jumped the gun, at Kelly_convos. My website is kellyconvos.com. Shoot me an email at speakup@kellyconvos.com. That is the easiest way to find me. And I am here for people who are ready to uncover their authentic voice. It makes life easier, and it is tough out there. So we got to support each other, and we got to make things as easy as possible on ourselves and each other. Give grace, get grace.
And there we go. Thank you so much. And I'll have you back. I'll see you next time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please click the small bell and become a subscriber and join me in spreading the message of grace.